Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Pythagoras. Now, many of you probably have heard of Pythagoras, the Pythagorean theorem, right? A squared plus b squared equals c squared, to calculate hypotenuse of a right triangle. But not many people know the cult of Pythagoras, his followers, the Pythagoreans, and ultimately their demise. Um, So here we go. A little history, a little math history from a math content creator and lover. Okay, so the Pythagoras and the Pythagoreans believed in that numbers were divine and perfect, and they worshiped numbers. Numbers were great. Everything was perfect. Nothing could go wrong with numbers. They also didn't pick things up when they dropped them on the ground, and they believed they were reincarnated into beans, so they also didn't eat beans. Hence my little thing here: don't eat beans. Um, so yeah, this was, by the way, this is just a website I found with some history, but it doesn't tell you about what I'm about to tell you. So everything was going great for the Pythagoreans. They were very secretive though, so they kept to themselves. So whatever studies they were doing, they kept it all secret. Uh, until one day when calculating the hypotenuse of a triangle with a side length of say 1 foot and a base length of 1 foot would make an hypotenuse that's equal to the square root of 2, right? 1 squared plus 1 squared equals the square root of 2 squared, right? That would be 2 equals 2. Um, but the problem is the square root of 2 is messes with the Pythagoreans' perfect way of thinking, because the square root of 2 is, what is that? Is that a rational number? Is that one of the numbers that the Pythagoreans thought were divine? Well, let's see what the square root of 2 is all about. Square root of 2 irrational? I don't know. Let's say. Let's prove it. Let's figure out what's going on here. Uh, we have to prove by a counterexample. We have to assume the square root of 2 is rational, right? Any a rational number is any number that can be written as the ratio of two integers. Um, so once we assume it's rational, we could say that the square root of 2 is equal to a over b, where a and b are integers. But very important, they must be relatively prime. Their greatest common factor needs to be 1, as in it's the fraction a over b is in simplest form. Okay, this means that they can't both be even, right? Because if they're both even, it could be reduced more, right? So one of them has to be odd. Now it's time to do a little math, okay? We want to begin by squaring both sides of this equation to isolate a, right? So you square them, 2 equals a squared over b squared, and then multiply both sides by b squared, and you get 2b squared equals a squared, okay? Uh, well, this means that a is even because anything multiplied by 2 is an even number. So that means we could write that a is equal to 2c, where c is some natural number, a positive number. So since a is even, this implies that b must be odd, okay? So since a equals 2c, that means a squared equals 2c squared, which equals 4c squared, right? Notice that 2b squared equals a squared. So that means 2b squared equals 4c squared. And when you divide both sides by 2, you get b squared equals 2c squared. This looks awfully similar to this. Since b squared equals some number times 2, it also implies that b is even. So this means that a is a factor of 2 and b has a factor of 2. Something just doesn't seem right here, right? We assume that a and b are relatively prime. However, we just proved up here that they both have a factor of 2. So A and B have a common factor of 2, not only making them both even numbers, but also making them not relatively prime. Um, but we assumed that they were. Well, that's a contradiction, and we reductio ad absurdum. We reduced this problem to absurdity. Square root of 2 is not rational. That's absurd. It's irrational. It's an irrational number. Ooh, oh no. What did Pythagoras and the Pythagoreans do when they found out it was irrational? Well, they initially kept it to themselves. Remember, they thought numbers were divine and that everything was perfect. Uh, However, one of their members needed to tell the world, or at least in that time, his town, right, or whatever. Um, well, issue with that, as the people really didn't. The people on the outside looking at the cult were like, they're weird, whatever. They believe in, it's perfect divinities of numbers and whatever. However, once word got out that everything isn't so perfect in the world of the Pythagoreans, uh, what happened? They got run out of town, burned, buildings burned, um, and Pythagoras himself was chased down and murdered because of all, because of the square root of 2, because of the irrationality of the square root of 2. You have uh, the first cult being disbanded, their homes burned, chased out of town, their leader killed. Man, however, what a what a great story. Math is so great. Math is filled with these great history stories, and uh man, and the square root of 2, boy, did that change the universe as we know it. It's my favorite number. Hopefully, after hearing this story, it's your favorite number now. And yeah, if you like what you hear, I'm only going to get better at this. This is only one of my first videos. I'm going to be doing math content, talking about math history, talking about math writing, math education, math. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing, hit a like, subscribe, leave a comment. I'll respond to all comments, and go math.